Hello and welcome to the Daily Forex Report for September 18th. We are looking at the U.S.-Japanese yen pair. This pair created an inside bar at the open, during Friday's session. Did gap up at the open a few pips. We are looking for this pair to potentially continue moving sideways, potentially going as high as 77.28, possibly as low as 76.29. Look for some resistance around 77.05. And look for some support around 76.50. Now the Euro USD pair, this pair gapped down about 100 pips at the open. It gapped a very large amount. Overall, we're looking for this pair to retrace and move sideways. Look for it to potentially go as high as 139.70, possibly as low as 135.20. Look for some resistance around 138.95 and look for some support around 135.75. Now the pound US dollar pair, this pair created a doji bar at an inside bar doji bar on Friday. It did gap down about 65 pips. Didn't gap down past the low though that we had last week. We are looking for this pair to potentially go as high as 159.04. Possibly as low as 156.07. Look for some resistance around 158.75 and look for some support around 157.00. Now the US Swiss, this pair closed higher on Friday, did gap up a little bit, about 46 pips or so. We are looking for it to potentially go as high as 0.8920. Possibly as low as 0.8618. Look for some resistance around 0.8850 and look for some support around 0.8650. Now, as far as news announcements go, we have one news announcement being released tomorrow. It's the Australian Reserve Bank Board September meetings. That's being released at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. No real consensus as previous was. There's really no previous. It's just the board minutes, the recorded minutes of that meeting. Well, that about takes care of that. Well, let's take a look at some of the charts. What I'm looking at during this next session. If you back out in Japanese yen a little ways, we have somewhat of a trend line. It has been broken once before with this strong move to the downside right here. But nonetheless, when I zoom back in, we have a potential for a break of that. We had an inside bar on Friday, so we have the potential for it to move to the downside below it. Not sure if it'll break it down to that point or not. Let's see if we can get a line here. There we go. We have a potential, if it breaks to the downside, a potential of grabbing roughly about 15 pips, 13 to 15 pips, and then having it run on down about 60 pips from the open. That, of course, would fill the gap, which is expected. Now, looking at the Euro USD, this pair did create an inside bar. It gapped down, however. We are looking for it to retrace that gap. Same thing with the pound US dollar pair. We have a strong move to the downside. However, we are looking for it to retrace back to the previous Friday's close. Now the US Swiss, believe it's moving sideways, did gap up. We should see it retrace as well. However, if we get a break below Thursday's low or this session's high, if it breaks to the upside, we'll see higher numbers, of course, and if it breaks to the downside, we would see lower ones. Well, that about wraps us up for today. Until next time, this is Jason Fielder. Good trading.